Greetings. Before I get into the main subject I want to talk about today, and that is art and creativity, I wanted to mention something that ran into recently, and it had to do with studies about people's happiness and well-being when they are in nature on a regular basis. And apparently it makes a huge difference in their happiness and well-being. And of course, the more the merrier, the more time spent, the more the results. But to me, it's interesting to contemplate that like animals, for example, that have been living in a zoo or a cage might be a better example for, thousands of years. They get used to it. They, take it for granted. This is what things are like. And in a sense, we do the same thing with, living inside these artificial environments, inside a box, basically, a geometric shape. And, everyone does it, so it's like, what the hell? But you come out here, and the forms themselves are what you could call, fractal. So there's a mathematics. It may appear chaotic and random, and in some ways it is, but there's also patterns, for example, in how trees branch, how leaves sprout, and things like that. So anyway, it seems like just a pretty common sense observation that being in nature for an animal or for us would be better than being in a cage or a box. But anyway, we're not benefiting from it. But like I said, we take it for granted that that's the way things are. So anyway, if we were in nature all the time, then what would the benefits be? Because the study I was looking at said, you need 20 minutes 3 times a week, to achieve a balance. It's like, okay, let the animal out of the cage, out of solitary for 3 times a week, 20 minutes out in the sun. So it's going to make a big difference. Well, not as much of a difference as being out there all the time. So anyway, this is another societal thing that we kind of take for granted that is just wrong. So there are plenty of other things like this, and I'm going to talk about art, and also I could mention religion, because the thing about religion is that we all take it for granted that religion is part of life and it's everywhere and it's accepted or it's not accepted. But religion is all based on belief without experience. So you can believe in whatever, deity or Christ or even UFOs or something like that, or Bigfoot. You'll see bumper stickers that say, I want to believe. It's like as soon as you see one or experience it, the thing, then you don't have to believe anymore because now you know. So anyway, in that sense, all religion is a hallucination. You're taking someone else's word for something, believing it, and you have no experience of it. So anyway, thing about art and creativity, and I've been commenting on this recently on some YouTube videos that I've been watching because I've been researching this a bit. And to back it up a hair to my own experience, I had a very chaotic childhood, early years, and it has put me in a state of being continuously occupied. And that apparently is a way to deal with a childhood experience like that, because you carry it forward in your life subconsciously, in a way, or at least until you become aware of it. So you take other people that popped up. Prince is one. Shitty childhood. Was continuously occupied throughout his whole career. Stevie Ray Vaughan's another one. Who else? So it goes on and on and on. So the people that we revere as being creative machines or powerhouses or huge successes or celebrities, things like that, they have this thing in common where their background is terrible. And so they feel a need to continuously perform in order to get some kind of validation and acceptance. And of course, no amount is ever enough. You have to go on tour again, basically, because they're always starving unless they can step back and take a long look at their behaviors and the causes. Now, I was at the flea market the other day, and there was a cute little boy, 5 years old. I bought a drawing from him for 2 cents. And, you know, I can show it to you. And he'd written A+ on it. So here he is, 5 years old, and already he's so aware that he's going to be graded. So he put the grade on there before anyone else had the chance to, which in a way is a good thing. But in a way, it's not, because he's already subscribing to this system that basically tells you you're not good enough. And there are stories, someone I know who got straight A's all through school, you know, then went to college, got all straight A's. Third year of college, professor gave her a B. She had a nervous breakdown. It destroyed her because she had done nothing but continuously attempt to validate herself, and it wasn't enough, and that destroyed her. So anyway, the thing about art is, here people, I'm an artist myself, right? Or I was, but people praise artists, they praise actors, they praise musicians. Oh, they're so creative, you know, and we got some things wrong here. Basically, it's, in a way, it's similar to the problems with religion, because we look at art and we say, oh, well, you know, we got art, and then you got art history, and you go back in time and you've got, you know, the Greeks and the Romans and cave art and Egyptian art and things like that. And the thing about a lot of that is we're calling it art, but it's usually not. In fact, it never is. The art that we have, in parentheses, or quotation marks, is a result of psychological problems. The works that they had back then, there were different reasons for it. There were rituals, there were recording events, history, they were diagrams of locations, things like that, like Aboriginal art. And we look at them and think, oh, that's art, it's so creative, it's so artistic. It's like, no, that's not what it was at all. And it's not surprising that we can't see that from our perspective, for the most part. So what happens with the artist and the essential unhealthiness of the artist, myself included? And the examples are everywhere. Salvador Dali, Picasso, Andy Warhol. To some degree or lesser degree or greater degree, you know, some are not so disturbed, perhaps. But basically, when they create the work and then stand up and present it for a response, some of them may like the negative response as much as the positive response because they got your attention. But anyway, you have all that, the creators, and then you have the audience. So the audience will encourage them, drive the whole process forward, fuel it, feed it, basically. Well, what exactly is going on here? Well, the thing about our entertainment culture, going back to the analogy of an animal in a cage, when an animal's in a cage and all it's doing is pressing buttons to pass the time, Well, it needs anything to pass the time. Now, I will say that laughter can be a good thing. So, comedy and laughter is kind of therapeutic, and there can be benefits to that. But what happens with the audience is that they feed the whole thing. They keep it going. And it's not because they are healthy themselves. It's because they need to be distracted, occupied, escape the grind, the workday, or something like that. Now, not every culture has done things this way. We do them this way because there's basically money involved. So any creative person can make money, movies can make money, music can make money, and so on. So an interesting thing about my own experience, I've taught before about the conditioning that children receive age 1 to 7. And I have a distant memory, I might have been about 5 years old, of seeing on TV, black and white TV, a hand drawing, making marks. Sometimes the memory comes back more clearly than other times, but it's in there. And basically, because my brain had been in theta wave mode, age 5 or so, that just got absorbed in there and I learned something from it. So repetitious, making of lines was programmed into me. Well, through TV. Well, the thing about TV is, why do we have TV? Why did we have it in the first place? Was it for our benefit? No, not really. It was to sell televisions and to have commercials. So the whole reason that I got programmed to draw was because of money at the core of it. Now, another thing about so-called entertainers is that in the past, you had, circuses, you had jugglers, you had strongmen, you had gypsies, fortune tellers. You had people that were traveling around, and basically they, needed to make some money desperately. And so they came up with these ways of doing it. And in a lot of cases, like circuses, for example, they would try to go to a town and they would be violently ejected because they were seen as parasitical, basically. So for a very, very long time, entertainers were, in a sense, considered to be scoundrels, rogues, scum, perhaps not quite, human, subhuman. That's what a geek was. A geek was usually an alcoholic guy who would get in a cage and bite the heads off live chickens, and they would, pay him in booze or whatever for doing that. So anyway, I'm getting close to the end of the trail here. But that's the thing about art and creativity, because some of the discussions I've had about this lately, I point out the dynamic behind it, of the damaged person being continuously occupied and looking for approval. And people still kind of, they don't really quite get it. And yeah, I understand that. I mean, I'm only getting it now. I'm 65 years old. I've been doing this for a long time. So, they will say, oh, well, they're so creative and they've given so much, and they'll never be forgotten. Never be forgotten. Their legacy will live on. It's like, well, that's too bad, because everyone's legacy living on and on and on and on, all it does is clutter things. It clutters up the world. And using Aborigines, Australian Aborigines as an example again, which I had before, they had no celebrities, no famous people. Once someone died, their name was never spoken again. So all this relates to the question, do we want to get the fuck out of the cage? Or do we want to stay in the cage? So is this so frightening? you know, that you might have to spend all your time out here, you know, forget the teat, let go of it, forget the money, because the system we have doesn't work. It's in failure mode, and it will continue to be that way. Now, I have, in closing, one more theory about all this, and that has to do with, it goes along with the idea of Pangaea, and Pangaea was the continent that basically contained all the continents and then broke apart and they spread across the Earth. Pangaea was in the southern hemisphere. Well, the difference between the electromagnetic frequencies of the Earth, magnetic fields, they affect the brain differently because they're different in the northern and the southern hemispheres. So even to this day, people in the southern hemisphere, they think differently. They're more holistic. Northern hemisphere, they're more analytical, mathematical, scientific, things like that. So as the continents moved up, the northern hemisphere, this is what you see in all these countries. Science and technology, totally dominant. Connection to the universe, nature, not even there. So apparently the continents eventually pass back down into the southern hemisphere and rejoin. So this is a very, very long cycle. So it may be that human beings, it's like, well, it's supposed to be this way, that we're supposed to get detached and then over time become reconnected. So anyway, one thing about nature and the benefits of being in nature to your well-being, and because you're absorbing the fractal patterns, they're not chaos. There's something about them which is peaceful and nurturing. So this is why I went into, what do you call it, Kinko's, FedEx Kinko's the other day. Horribly artificial environment, machines cranking, stuff like that. I'm good friends with some of the people that work in there. I said, you know, you guys really need some plants in here. And he said, yeah, that would be nice, but they won't let us. So anyway, that's a beneficial thing too, just to have plants in your house. And I've got plants all over the house. I've got plants next to the bed, by the window. I take care of them. I look at them. They have a good effect. So, hey, let me hear what you think of all this BS, okay? Talk to you later.